Terrific,
Yeah.
welcome.
Do you want both?
Yeah.
This is pretty crazy. This is the last common time event of the semester. It just went so quickly, right?
I love that.
So as we speak, Wendy is with the first and second years over at the practicum presentations. So we're getting a chance to see everybody today in one form or another, while our seniors are out in the field and trickling back onto campus. We actually had some announcements. We want to make sure everybody hears today. Just a couple of things, reminders. One is our holiday gathering, which is next Friday, the 9th, from 5:30 to 7:30. Conveniently short enough that it's not taking up a whole evening, and early enough that you can do other things too. But if you can make it, we would love to see you there. I know that when Wendy sent the email out for RSVP, within like a few hours, we had 53 yeses, and they're still coming in. So please, if you haven't responded yet, make sure that you do. We'd really like to see you there. Let's see. Spring semester, just a reminder that the common time schedule is up on Canvas. So you'll want to be looking ahead. In spring, we only meet once as a group for this class, but we also obviously have a spring seminar and a few other things, so you want to make sure you put dates on your calendar if you haven't already. But that's, I know that Wendy emailed it, and it's also up on Canvas right now. Third thing, reminder of finals week. We'll have extended hours and snacks like we've done in the past. So I think Cindy will be sending an email out for that, but just a reminder that we'll have longer hours here and food for you during finals week to get you through, make sure everybody survives and makes it to Christmas. Let me see, tutoring also. Math tutoring is on Monday and Wednesdays, science is on Tuesday and Thursdays. So Zoe and Courtney will be here from 8 to 9:30 those evenings, some extended hours during finals week, and you can obviously email or text them anytime for extra help if you need it. So they'll be around to help run study groups or whatever you need for your finals. Last thing, just a reminder from Wendy that she sent an email out about peer mentoring. So if you are a peer mentor, make sure that you set up a third time to meet with your mentee if you haven't done that already. What we found out the other day was that some people have already met with their mentee for a third time and just haven't logged it online yet. So we're not really sure who's met, who hasn't logged, and who hasn't met yet, but just make sure you get that taken care of. If you haven't seen your mentee for the third time yet, make sure that happens and you get it logged so you know that everybody's been covered. That's it. Any questions? Okay, cool. So we are going to move right on to the agenda for the day, which is a little bit on this whole issue of research methods. And we've talked about all of the kind of background pieces. We've talked about your kind of a statement of a problem and a rationale sort of for a topic you're interested in, how to write a literature review, and that sort of thing. And the last kind of component of the paper you're writing in the spring is going to be a look into research methodologies that you might use to be able to conduct a study that you would do in your classroom. So we're going to look at some of the kind of pluses and minuses, pros and cons of the different research methods. We'll look at an example together. And then we'll kind of apply that to what your final paper is supposed to look like and give a chance for some question and answer and a to-do list for our January and final session. So, the question we want to deal with a little bit this afternoon is how do we most effectively collect and analyze data to draw accurate conclusions? Yes, it is remotely possible that the Earth's gravity has increased, but I think there's a much simpler explanation. Sometimes we get data and we say, oh, the data seems to suggest this, when in reality, something else is actually going on. We misinterpret the numbers that are there. So part of it is being able to collect data, and part of it is just being able to understand what that data means. So when you're out there doing action research in your classroom, there are lots of different ways that you can get data. So the chapter that you read in the book talked about that, different methodologies. So for example, so let me just do this first. We're going to take a look at this. I want to talk with you about what those methods are, but I'm going to have you do a short discussion with a partner about a different type of study that's out there. So I'm going to ask you to give me about 2 or 3 advantages or disadvantages of each one of our drawbacks to each one of the methods, and then we're going to report back to the rest of the group here. So one of the research methods that's talked about in your book is using a survey or a questionnaire. When you give students a survey or a questionnaire to fill out, there are some real benefits to that, some good things about asking students things on a survey. There are also some drawbacks to using surveys. So what I want you to think about are a couple of advantages to using a survey, and maybe a couple of drawbacks also. You can give a survey to your students on attitudes and beliefs that they have. That's kind of a popular one. We think about what is a student's attitude toward learning science. What is a student's attitude toward using technology in a math classroom? Sort of how do you measure those? And oftentimes, attitudes and beliefs can be measured by using a survey. What's the good side about that? What's the downside? We sometimes sit down individually with students and interview them. I want to know what Caitlin is thinking, so I sit down with Caitlin and I spend 15 minutes with her and I ask her a bunch of pointed questions to try to get at her thinking. There are some really good things about doing a structured interview like that. There are also some drawbacks. I can do group interviews or focus groups. All right, so there are pluses and minuses to that too. I even think of it in terms of how I gather the data from you when we do the lunches together, the dining with the director, which many of you have been a part of. When I do that, I always get 6 or 8 people around the table for lunch, and I pick your brains, and we talk a little bit, see what you're thinking. That's one way to get information from you. How is that different from if I took an individual person to lunch and picked their brain one-on-one? There are advantages to the one-on-one interview, there are advantages to a group interview or a focus group kind of a thing. Testing and retesting is a common one, all right? I want to know if the teaching strategy that I used is successful, and so one way I can do it is I can pre-test you, see what you know about the topic, then teach you something for a day, a few days, a couple weeks, and then post-test you and see if your score significantly increases over the time. If it does, I must have had some impact on you during that time. So I can test and retest using numerical scores. I can use a checklist and observe what's going on in a classroom. So if I wanted to know how students respond to a certain teaching strategy, I could observe somebody using that teaching strategy and be making marks about what's going on in the classroom, who's paying attention, what they're doing, etc., and then use that checklist to be able to assign some kind of a score to people based on what they're doing. This is feeling pretty quantitative, isn't it? All right. Number 7 is a journal or writing prompt. All right, so I already described for you a few sessions ago about Kim, one of my former honors students, who used journal writing. Remember how I talked about that, how she gathered data from journal writing? And her research question was, can I learn as much from my students by having them write in a journal as I could learn from giving them a test? So she had them do regular journal writing and analyzed their thinking and how it developed over time by reading the writing that the students had done. There are pluses to that, there are drawbacks to that. Doing an audio recording, not unusual to do that. You could put some type of a device on the table, even an iPhone, and get an audio recording of your students, get an MP3 file, go back and listen to it later, see what the students were talking about at that table. And so they could be doing that in a group, or you could even do that for a whole class and kind of analyze how the class discussion went. Pluses and minuses to that. Also coupled with that, video recordings, right? So you can go in a classroom and actually videotape what your students are doing. You'll all be required to do that when you do the EDTPA as seniors, okay? The EDTPA is a way that the state measures how well you can plan and teach lessons in the field, and you will be required to videotape your teaching in the classroom and analyze that videotape. And so that's part of that process. It's an assessment process. It's not a matter of just saying, here's what I did, and here's what the students did. It's, here's the videotape that somebody else can watch that proves what the students actually did or how they responded to the lesson that I taught. And then lastly, what about pre-existing data? So we talk about going into the student files. Maybe you're interested in being able to predict the student's success in a future class by how they've done in a past class, or an IQ score, or whatever it happens to be, and you actually go into the student files and dig that number out. You mine the data, and then you use it to make predictions about some group of students. There are some really good advantages to going back and looking at that kind of data. There are some drawbacks. Okay, get the idea? So these are a variety of different ways I talked about in the chapter of ways that we can get information about our students. So I think we have about 20 people here, so we should be able to just sort of pair up. Do we have an even number? So let's see, if we do number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, Catherine, 9, and 2 will be 10, right? Have I got a number? Okay, so I want you to take about 5 minutes right now. Jot down a few examples of, here are some advantages and some drawbacks to your research method, and be ready to report back to us.